All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We are live. So yeah, it's like the very last episode of Fluent 1 month, let's say, anniversary. We did that like small live stream series. We had like the Pampal guys on Tuesday. We had Marco from Neurona yesterday. Like insane chat on DeFi and just yield and like the future of neo banking. Like it was awesome. And today we kind of like wrapping up the series with Vena. We have like the huge pleasure to have Lex, which is like one of the co-founder. So Lex, how are you doing?
Hey man, thanks for having me. For sure, let's go for the 1 month anniversary. Things have been real fun. I've been quite occupied, thinking through how we can like glow this up even more, like doing much better than what we've already done so far.
No, man. Like, I mean, like as you can read on the screen, yeah, Vena is like at what 25 million TVN now. Like, it's pretty insane, right? Like in just 1 month, right? Like, I think like not a lot of apps can can flex those
Right,
numbers, right? So yeah, I
right.
mean, like congrats for that. Like, been like a huge fan since the first day, and seeing like those numbers kind of like concretize like the work that you guys have put is pretty, it's just pretty cool, right? But okay, let's
Right.
take a small step back, right? Like I think like there might be some people that are like just like unfamiliar with what you guys do with Vena and with like like
Yeah.
that landing kind of like landscape. And so before we just jump into like those milestones, what's next, and all those things, like yeah, just like give us a quick rundown of like what's Vina, like what makes it like different, like what why Fluent, and just like yeah,
Right,
tell us,
right.
catch us up.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for that. Really, before I jumped into what Vina is, what we're building, would like to say like thanks to a lot of you, especially you and the Fluent team. Without you guys, it wouldn't be possible us reaching this like massive milestone. Yeah, I mean it's hugely contributed by our partners like Nerona. Sprout, and also especially you guys, like the Fluent ecosystem incentive program really pushed us forward. Uh, so yeah, thanks for that.
Man,
Now
like
on to what?
that's pleasure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. On to like what Vina is, what we're trying to build. For some background, I'm Lex. I've been in DeFi for about 4 years now. Initially started as a farmer during the like food farm days, and then became a professional investor in a venture capital. And then like since 2 years ago, basically I've been actively farming and building different money market and yield based products. And I mean, end of last year, we got in touch with Deno and was onboarded to build on Fluent. So the initial idea was that Fluent is an up and coming chain. Any chain would definitely need the core primitives of DeFi, like DEX, lending, and nowadays a stable. So we took the money market layer, or we would like to call it the credit layer, and essentially we spin up a lending market on Fluent. I like to call it the native money market of Fluent because right now our main market drivers are Neurona, which is Fluent stable. Onto how we're different than typical money markets. It's there in our tagline, like capital, price, and reputation. So basically, what it means is we are a money market that takes into account reputation, which is part of Fluent's primitive called Prince. So we use Prince as part of our risk engine to assess the credit worthiness of an individual. Because right now, all money markets, they operate quite similarly. As long as you put collateral, then we treat you just as your collateral. But we took huge inspiration from TradFi, how there's a credit score, how if you have good history of repayment, you have good on top of like having good collateral behind you, then you would get much better terms than if you were, let's say, you had like bad history, bad financial history, or even social history. So that's where we're coming from,
Yeah,
and essentially to put it in small terms, as Vena is Fluent's credit layer with the key differentiator of Prince integrated into the engine.
nice. No, that's super well explained. Like not like the thing with those explainers, like it's easy to go like in like a ton of buzzwords and
Right,
like things we don't understand, but like you nailed it. Like I love it, right? So
right,
okay,
right.
there's
Thank
like
you.
this credit layer, right? Like there's the Prince integration that is like your main differentiator. Maybe like let's start with like the credit layer, right? So yeah, I mean like okay, you guys now like are at around 25 mil, right? But for
Yeah,
people that have been like like following you since like the beginning, right? Like
yeah.
you guys like took an interesting and then I think like a pretty interesting approach, which is just trying to grow like slowly and just like sustainably, right? Like you just like started with like a 5 million cap, like a 10 million cap, and just like slowly just like increasing like like the amount of money that people were able to just like deposit, right? Like instead of
Right.
oh, you know what, like let's open everything like from D1 and and find out later, right? Like could you give us like a little bit more of color about like like the reasoning behind like that strategy, right? Like why was it like so important for you guys to just like in a way not I won't say like control like the growth of the protocol, right? But take that
Right.
like
Right.
slow approach instead of like big splash.
Right. Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, to put it simply, we divide our roadmap or like plans into phases. Right now, I would say we're still in phase zero or phase one, you can say. Essentially, going live with like money market without the Prince integration first. A few reasons for that. Mainly, why we want to build in phases is because so we can better understand and analyze the user actions and also activities on chain. So for us to actually realize our like vision of capital price and reputation, we're gonna need prints and a lot of other data sources as well as deep liquidity to actually enable this. So what we decided to do in phase one, phase zero, which is building out the money market, is to slowly raise the gaps, like you said, so that we can always experiment and optimize on different parameters. So for context in money market, there are several parameters that you need to take into account for, essentially to best balance the supply and demand. Everything is done by code, but there's a lot of maths behind it, and a lot of this like logic is driven or like conditioned by how much liquidity there is uh, on Fluent, also the like type and profile of the assets. Right now, we're mainly driven by Nerona, USDNR, and SUSDNR, which launch exclusively on Fluent so far. So we don't have much data to work with on Nerona. That's why we need to do it in phases and monitor Nerona's like supply growth, also the flux LP growth, so that we can always ensure that at any given time, liquidation can always be processed. That's why we took it in phases. Once Nerona reaches XTVL, once Flux reaches XTVL, then we can raise the caps and so on and so forth. So our latest cap raise, which was about last week, early last week, so far have reached the point of current equilibrium. So there doesn't seem to be too much changes in the like supply or even borrow markets in our case, and also in Nerona's TVL and Flux LP like LP debt. So far currently these numbers are doing great. It's optimal for like us the protocol. It's optimal for the SUSDNR loopers as well as the USDNR depositors. So that's the core reason why we took like a staged approach.
Love that. Love that. No, I think that is pretty interesting, right? Because usually what people see on Twitter is like, oh wow, like it's just like creating expectations and
Yeah,
like kind of
yeah,
like
yeah.
building hype, right? But like like it's pretty interesting to have as to have kind of like the backstage reasoning behind like
Right.
those decision, right? Because I think like one of the like one of the factor that you mentioned is like, okay, like we also need to check like the state of the ecosystem, right? And like I remember like the touts and the discussions that were happening as well, like on Fluent side, which is like, okay, we want to find like or we just want to have like that ecosystem that is like the most integrated, let's say, as possible, right? Like, so by that I mean
Right.
like, okay, that would be wonderful if each app could kind of like reinforce kind of like each other's, and
Yeah.
basically you kind of like you just gave, right, like a very good rundown of like what's happening, right, and what you need to actually kind of like kickstarts like some flywheels, right, and things that you have to keep in
Right.
mind. So no, honestly, like that's super interesting, like insights. And I think like you already kind of like touched base a little bit on that, right, like with like you like being like closely working with Neurona, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
like what our users actually like doing on Vena like today. I think like
Right.
Marco was like also touched base a little bit on that yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Like, and how like on the different strategies that people kind of like put in place, right? But like, what is like your perspective and like what you are seeing like on Vena side, right? What is like your your POV on
Right.
like what's happening and what users use you for?
Right. Right. For sure. I mean, so like I said, I mean, in this phase, we're still just doing our best to like monitor and analyze users as much as possible. So to answer your question, what user doing right now? A lot of our users are relatively higher ticket sizes. There's some smaller ticket sizes, but in general, since there's one best or there's one like key play in Vena, which is to supply SUSDNR and borrow USDNR. Naturally, everyone is doing that. We do have an ETH market, but since most opportunity and yield lies between SUSD and RUSD and R, that's like the natural pathway. So most of them are doing SUSDNR, USDNR loops. There's a lot of whales there. There's also our partner Sprout, which deposits or supplies USDNR into our market. So they're tapping into us as a yield source and providing liquidity for the leverage loopers. So the key profile is whales, I would say. There's several mid check and small check users here and there. But this is what we're working with right now. And it's actually quite interesting because once we will start implementing prints, will with whales, the thing is they have a lot of good on-chain history. So that's something we can work with as well. And for mid to and say smaller ticket sizes, they often have a lot more appetite to do more social and off-chain task or even build reputation off-chain. So yeah, those are like good signals for us to work with.
Definitely, yeah. That print, like integration is something that I'm pretty I'm
Right,
expecting
right.
super evilly, right? I think like that's gonna be like a banger. But before going into that territory, right? Like there's like one last thing that I wanted to touch base with you on, right? Like you've just mentioned, right? Like there's like the USDNR, SUSDNR, right? Like this
Yep.
looping, that like strategy that it seems most user are kind of like, like implementing. You also touch
Yep.
base on ETH, right? But like, what is like your kind of like perspective on adding more markets, right? Like, what is like the
Right.
process to, let's say, okay, like I like another asset, let's say blend or whatever
Right. Right.
asset,
Right.
right? Like what is like the process, right? Like what are the steps that you guys are taking to say like, oh, okay, this asset, it is like good enough to be added on Vena, or maybe like it's just too early, or kind of like what is like the thought process before being like, okay, we are adding like this market to like
Right.
Vena as a whole.
Right. Right. Yeah, for sure. Good question. I mean, you shared a lot about what our next asset will be. It will be Blend. I mean, naturally, because it's a Fluent's native token, and I guess it's the best option for a relatively volatile asset that we can add into our market. So another thing about money markets is volatility is actually good for us because I mean right now stable is good, right? Sure, but for us to actually like spin up more markets, it's more ideal for us to have more volatile assets so that we can even understand users better. Because right now, I would say with stable markets only, the risk of liquidation or default is really low. Whereas in a volatile asset, then we can actually expect whether this guy would repay or he would just rather get his assets liquidated, etc. better. So that's another signal that we're looking for when integrating volatile assets. Now on to why Bland and what's the process is for us. Why Bland? Again, it's a natural source. Us being the native money market or credit layer of Fluent, a lot of our users, all our users are on Fluent, and we expect them to have appetite to use Bland as collateral, be it to just unlock some short-term capital, or even they can just do like semi or like mid-term leverage loops, which is directional. So that's where we're coming from. And onto the process, there's a lot of again maths behind it. Mainly, the reason why we can't launch it day one, or we choose not to launch it day one, of course, is because we don't want to add on too much variables at once when launching. And like I said, USDNR and SUSDNR, they're new exclusive assets on Fluent. So even those we need to monitor at launch. Uh, Now we've spent the past 2 weeks monitoring Blend. It's definitely more than good enough to be used as collateral. In our case, what we look at is the liquidity depth in plots, in the off-chain or like sexes, and so far liquidity is really really good on all those venues. And besides that, we monitor the funding rates so that we can get better sense of what the ideal borrow cost would be for users. Because like I said, the two main uses for enabling blend would be number one, unlock short-term capital. So let's say someone like a blend whale blend holder who doesn't really want to sell blend because they believe in it in the long term, but they do need some capital in the short term to either like enter some opportunity or even just off ramp it. They can just use it as collateral in Vena, take out USDNR, then off ramp it. Or second option is they can do like a midterm leverage play. So for example, they can use blend as collateral, borrow USDNR, go to Flux, swap it for more blend, and just repeat the loop so that now they're directionally long blend. So for this second case, we need to make sure that our rates or our cost to borrow is going to be quite similar to perps. For example, longing or shorting and say OKX or Bybit. Because if we're very much more expensive, then it doesn't really make sense for users to to directionally long in Vina, especially perps without doubt has much better UX for doing directional plays. Uh, Another thing is that in our case, we need to make sure that our liquidator keepers and like partners are willing to like hold some blend inventory or like willing to take on inventory risk when liquidating blend in the case of liquidation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, right, like all those kind of things, right, are like factors that people might not like might not think about, right?
Right,
And
right, for
like
sure, for sure.
it's like like sometimes you see those announcements like, yeah, why haven't you guys done it before, right? And it's
Right,
like
right, right,
like there are so many like factors to take into account, and it's pretty it's
right,
great to see that you guys are taking like the path of like we take our time, we just like like we do it like in the most sustainable ways that we
right,
can, and we're just not going for what, let's just open all the pipes like possible and
right, exactly.
see what's happening. So no, for that I think like hats off to you guys, because like building trust is something that takes times and that requires you to take the steps necessary, right? So no, for
Right,
that, like that's great. And
for
so
sure, for
yeah,
sure.
I mean now like time to go like into like the second part of Vina, right, that you kind of like
Yeah,
talked about at the beginning, right, which is like the core kind of like differentiator, which is like, okay, how can we basically leverage like prints and reputation and just like include it into like I guess like lending costs and borrowing costs, right? Like, so
yeah,
like for people that might not see like the link, like like instantly, like basically, how can we just like plug reputation into like just a credit market? Like,
right.
how does it work? Like, are there like some real life kind of like parallels, right? Like, how do you guys kind of like envision it, right?
Right, right. Yeah. So before that, actually, this is one of the key reasons why we decide to frame ourselves as a credit layer compared to just calling ourselves like a straight up money market. Because a credit layer is a bigger scope of a money market. So, for example, money market or lending protocols is a type of a credit market, but there are some other subtypes of credit market which would eventually be live as part of Vina as well. For example, uh, leverage vault, uh, leverage yield farm type of product, and even also say a yield trading product in Vina. So, and this Prince angle, what we're trying to do is not just integrate it into the money market side, but to the whole credit layer, i.e., the say yield trading, the vault, the leverage products. So all those will be integrated to Prince eventually. So now onto your question, how how exactly will the integration work? Basically, right now, you know, as I said, it's phase zero. So we're still treating all users equally. As long as they bring in capital, then we don't discriminate. But once our data points and the whole Prince infrastructure is much more robust, we'll start implementing it in again phases where we'll give benefits for users with good profile or good history. For example, in Prince, let's say one of the signals is, this guy is a long time Aave user, always repaid their loans, never got liquidated. So let's say give him a score, some arbitrary number, let's say like 9. And another guy comes in, doesn't have the best on and off chain record. Let's say starting from a blank slate, we'll just give him like reputation of 5, which is neutral. What we do is it's actually in our docs as well. I know none probably nowadays none of you guys see docs, but there's a table there for the Prince adjusted rate. Right now it's still like left blank, but essentially, let's say if you were to bring 100 US the 100 SUSDNR and you can borrow say $90 worth of USDNR, if your reputation is 5, then your borrow rate would be say 10%. But if your reputation is 9, then you can get like a 7% loan. So this means people with good history will get much better opportunities, and eventually beyond the money market, let's say the leverage yield vault, we can do something like, if your reputation 9, then you have a higher cap or higher deposit cap. If you are neutral or like score 5, then you can just deposit like up to 50K. But if you are level 9 or score 9, you can deposit up to 200K. So there's a lot of ways we can like gate these prints. Right now, we're mainly focusing on the money market on the adjusted borrow rate angle.
Yeah. So if I sum that up, it's like, okay, the more reputable you are, like the more, like the better the terms that you can get, you can
Yes,
get, right? Because you are more
exactly,
likely to repay and all those kind of things. No, that makes
exactly.
that makes perfect sense, right? And kind of like, what is, like you might, like I think like one of the biggest kind of like learning of like this, those last 30 minutes that we spent together was that, like, like there's like this whole kind of like process and all those calculations and stuff in
Yeah,
order to just like add like an asset or to increase a cap, right? Like, is there kind
right.
of like the same thing happening with, like the print? Because I guess like it's just like adding also like another kind of like layer of complexity, right? Like to
Yes,
protocol, right? So like basically, what is like the approach, right? I think like you mentioned something like, oh, you can go in the docs, etc. But like eye level, right? Like what is kind of like the approach, right? Like do you treat kind of like print as like one of the factor, right? Or is it like kind of
right,
like something completely like independent and that is like living on its own?
right. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, like you said, this another variable, and to just reiterate on the point, with Vena, we've always been working with something new. So Fluent is a new chain, USDNR is a new asset. So it's unlike launching a money market in an existing ecosystem where we already have the numbers to work with. We already can use like other protocols or other numbers as references. We're starting everything from a blank paper here.
Yeah.
So adding another variable is like another layer of confusion, mainly because back then, let's say we only have two factors to take into account: liquidity and estimated demand. But now we need to take into account each user's profile, and as more and more users use Vena, then there's gonna be like increase or like again different types of user, because sure we can just put them all into a score of let's say 1 to 10, but realistically, right, it's probably going to be a lot more specific than that. So the way I see it, there's probably going to be two factors to prints. For example, prints regarding the on chain and prints regarding the off chain. So that's actually two factors that we need to take into account for.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so like I said, we're gonna do like a really phased approach. Initially, starting out, the benefits or the discount for reputable users will be much less, but as we stabilize and grow, then we'll start increasing the like discounts or benefits.
That makes total sense, right? And maybe like a bit of alpha. Do you guys have any, like is it gonna be like in the
Right,
summer? Is it gonna be like 2027?
right,
Like we don't ask for any special
right,
date,
right.
right? Maybe like there's like
For
a
sure.
small
Yeah.
small alpha for the audience here.
Yeah, I mean, some alpha. This is actually something for all of us to think about. Is Fluent's whole say stepping in into the cultural landscape. We've been thinking about it for a little over a month now. There's beyond DeFi. There's a lot more asset classes that people are trying to bring into DeFi, and in crypto, almost everything is financialized. So, for example, in Ethereum, there is USD which is a stable coin backed by a GPU backed income. So that's something interesting. And for, let's say, in other chains and soon to be influent, there is a lot more like cultural assets. And cultural asset is a like massive market and group that we can tap into for into DeFi, for example, enabling them as collateral, making them a yield source, enabling leverage trading on them. So that is something that we are exploring in parallel to implementing Prince.
Damn, can't wait. we're gonna have like so much fun, right? Because I think, as you
For
said,
sure.
right, like, cultural assets, like people tend to say like, oh yeah, cultural assets equal just like collectibles, right? But the
Yeah.
end, well, the actually like the truth is that like it's much more than that. It's probably just like a multi-trillion market, right? Where like crypto is kind of like discovered maybe like few billion. So no, honestly, like I'm super pumped to explore that with you guys as well, right? No, man, like Lex, like thanks a lot, right? I think like we can just like wrap up here, right? Like the amount of alpha that you've given is like
Yeah.
insane already. So I think we can just like call it a day. I mean, thanks a lot for joining, right? Like you took like some
Anytime.
time to chat with us. So thanks a lot for that. Once again, just like congrats on everything you and the team have built so far, right? Like 20 million like TVL is not like it's not nothing, right? So congrats
For
for
sure.
that.
For sure.
And just like
Thank you.
yes, we're super excited to see what's next. So like, thank
100%.
you so much. Thanks guys to have listened to this live stream, to have shown up like for the other ones, right? Like in the series. If you haven't watched them live, just you can just catch up like on our Twitter account. They are all like available now. And yeah, once again, like thanks for everything. Thanks for the support, and see you soon. Cheers, Lex.
Of course. Thanks for having me. See you
See,
guys. Catch you later.
see you.